In a quiet village nestled among the rolling hills of Yorkshire, there lived a man named Thomas Whitmore. Once a celebrated automotive engineer with dreams of changing the world, Thomas had become a recluse, living alone in a worn-down cottage on the outskirts of the village. His neighbors barely saw him, and the only constant in his life was the rusting 1965 Aston Martin DB5 he kept under a weathered tarpaulin in his shed. To the villagers, Thomas was a mystery. Some said he'd lost everything in a scandal. Others claimed he was grieving. But the truth was more complex than any of them imagined, a tale of ambition, love, betrayal, and ultimately redemption. In his youth, Thomas had been brilliant. He grew up in Manchester, son to a single mother who worked 2 jobs to support him. Fascinated by cars, he spent hours sketching designs, building models, and dreaming of working for Aston Martin. By 25, he'd been recruited as a junior engineer. Life moved fast. He married Julia, the love of his life, and they had a son, Oliver. Thomas's talent quickly elevated him to the lead of a groundbreaking project, an eco-friendly, high-performance sports car. The project was meant to change the industry. But ambition has a price. As Thomas chased success, he neglected those closest to him. Late nights turned into forgotten birthdays. Julia begged him to slow down, to be present, but Thomas kept pushing, certain he was building a better future. Then came the betrayal. His project partner, Greg, manipulated data and blamed Thomas for cost overruns. The company faced a financial scandal. Thomas was forced to resign, blacklisted from the industry. The humiliation was public and devastating. Julia left, taking Oliver with her. For the next decade, Thomas drifted. He moved to the countryside, living quietly off savings. He restored his old Aston Martin, but even that passion faded. Each day blurred into the next. Regret became his closest companion. Occasionally, he'd receive a birthday card from Oliver, always unsigned but clearly written by his son. It gave him hope, but he couldn't bring himself to write back. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning, everything changed. A letter arrived in a cream-colored envelope, addressed in Oliver's handwriting. "Dear Dad, Mum passed away last week. I thought you should know. I'm back in Manchester now. I'm not writing to blame you. I'm writing because I need to know who you are. I want to understand. If you're willing, I'll be at the old cafe on Baker Street this Saturday at 10 a.m. No pressure. Just a chat." Thomas sat frozen. The floodgates opened. Memories, guilt, longing. He didn't sleep that night. Saturday morning, he uncovered the DB5, tuned the engine, and drove towards Manchester. When Thomas arrived, Oliver was already seated. He looked older, more serious, with eyes that mirrored Julia's. Their conversation was slow at first, hesitant, painful. Thomas apologized, not just for the mistakes, but for the silences. Oliver spoke of growing up without answers, the ache of wondering why he wasn't enough. But he'd also come to see the complexity of adult life. He wanted to move forward. That day marked the beginning of their fragile reconciliation. Over the next few months, father and son met regularly. Thomas showed Oliver the DB5, and together they began restoring it, a process that mirrored the rebuilding of their relationship. Conversations turned from awkward to meaningful. Thomas told Oliver everything about the scandal, the betrayal, the depression. Oliver listened, not as a son seeking justice, but as a man seeking truth. One spring afternoon, Oliver suggested entering the DB5 into a vintage rally in the Lake District. Thomas hesitated. It'd been years since he'd been in the spotlight, but Oliver insisted, saying, "You've spent so long hiding from the world, Dad. Maybe it's time to race again, not for a trophy, but for yourself." They registered. Over the weeks, they prepped the car, shared stories, and laughed, something Thomas thought he'd forgotten how to do. The day of the race arrived. The DB5 gleamed. They didn't win, but crossing that finish line, Thomas felt a peace he hadn't known in decades. Months later, Oliver invited Thomas to speak at a local university's engineering department. Initially reluctant, Thomas eventually agreed. He shared his story not just of innovation, but of loss, missteps, and finding purpose again. Students were moved. Some even cried. After the talk, a young woman approached him. "My dad gave up his dreams after a mistake," she said. "Hearing you makes me want to help him try again." That moment shifted something in Thomas. He realized that his life, though marred by failure, still held value. His story could inspire change. Thomas moved back to Manchester. He became a mentor to young engineers. On weekends, he and Oliver took the DB5 on long drives. They visited Julia's grave often, bringing flowers and stories. Though she was gone, her spirit lingered in their bond. Thomas had traveled a long, painful road, but in the end it brought him home, not just to a place, but to his true self. And sometimes the longest roads offer the richest journeys. Redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about confronting it, making peace, and choosing to move forward. No matter how far you've strayed, there is always a way back home.